The British Prime Minister David Cameron says he's willing to fight to keep control of the Falklands. It comes after the Argentinian president sent him an open letter calling for negotiations over the disputed islands, which the two countries fought a war over back in 1982. RT's Sarah Firth has the details.
He was asked this question in an interview, whether Britain would fight to keep the Falkland Islands, and Prime Minister David Cameron saying, of course we would. So he made his position there extremely clear. If an attempt were made by Argentina to retake the Falkland Islands, that military troops would be deployed by Britain. So absolutely very clear on that, very strong rhetoric coming from the Prime Minister over that issue. This comes on the back of Argentina's president remaking these accusations that the Falkland Islands were stolen from Argentina by Britain. I think she called it 19th century colonialism. And I think some concern from people here today that, you know, this was something that was very much focused on in the course of the interview. This was some of the strongest statements, but of course perhaps overshadowing a little bit some of the other very important issues that are happening on a national level at the moment here in the country. We've got the cuts to child benefits coming in this week. Sorry, it's Tuesday that will go through the House of Commons. So some very important issues here at home at the moment. Of course, a lot of people say we're talking about fighting a war again somewhere else when actually we're still fighting our own battles here in the country at the moment. It's been nearly 30 years since we saw the end of the Falklands War. It definitely has very strong resonance with people here in Britain, but we've seen this argument kick off again. As I said, we've had very strong comments from the president in Argentina. It's also, of course, come into a much more recent argument again because it's been discovered that there are large oil reserves. Of course, I think that's really going to play a big part in seeing this contest over the islands between Britain and Argentina really heating up again. It doesn't look like it's going away.
Well, it's not the first time the Argentinian president has pressed Britain to end its mandate over the islands. Last year, the countries clashed over the issue of sovereignty during the G20 summit in Mexico. Well, for more on this, I'm now joined live by journalist Neil Clark. So why has Cameron responded in this way to what is a provocative but essentially unthreatening letter from the Argentinian president?
Hello. Yes, well, I think that for David Cameron, it's a great issue that it's come up again because the economy here is in dire straits in Britain. Austerity is really biting. People are very unhappy with what he's doing. And so I think, you know, bringing back the Falklands issue, I think obviously he'll be thinking back to 30-odd years ago when Mrs. Thatcher was in a similar position. She was a very unpopular leader here in Britain. Her opinion poll ratings were very low, and it seemed odds on that she would lose the next election. And she was almost a hated figure. And what happened was the Argentinians invaded the Falklands. Mrs. Thatcher sent the task force out, and the rest, as they say, is history. She became very popular. She became transformed into a national hero. And I think that David Cameron is very much hoping that bringing this Falklands issue back will sort of bring back the memories of 1982 and deflect people's attentions here from the very unpopular things that he's doing at home.
But Cameron is being provoked by Argentina, and perhaps many would say that the president of Argentina is exactly using those excuses you just cited for the UK for her to distract attention from Argentina's economy, which is in dire straits.
Well, that could well be the case, Bill. But you know, I think that the key point here is that whatever one thinks of the rights and the wrongs of the Argentinian claim to the islands or the British claim, I think that from a British perspective, I think that for Cameron, for this issue to come up now is very timely because the government is well down in the opinion polls. The government is really unpopular. I can't recall a government becoming so unpopular so quickly. And so I think that he will want to keep this in the news headlines. So I think, to answer your question, this is why he's reacted in such a sort of strong way.
If it does come to it that Argentina does indeed attack the Falkland Islands, Britain does have the right to respond, doesn't it?
Oh, in international law, yes, of course it would be. And I think from Cameron's point of view, I mean, we know that the government in Britain is very keen to intervene in Syria, but the problem they've got there is public support is not there. I mean, the latest polls show that very few people actually want the government to involve themselves in Syria. The Falklands would be a different ballgame, so to speak, because it is British territory, and I think it would be able to be more patriotically sort of put to the people. And so I think that were Argentina to do that, then I think Cameron would actually take that step and would be popular because of it.
The President Kirchner, she's accused Britain of colonialism. Is that a fair accusation?
Well, I think that, the rights and wrongs of this, if we had sort of a few hours to talk about it, I think that, yes, I think it is a fair assessment if you look back into the history of it. The fact is that the people of the island want to remain British. So there is a case for both sides, if you like. And certainly what needs to happen is dialogue between Argentina and Britain. But
why should there be dialogue between Argentina and Britain when actually this is a matter for the Falkland Islanders themselves?
Yeah, well, I agree. I think at the end of the game, at the end of the day, it must rest with them. If they don't want to go to Argentina, that should be the end of the story. But I don't see any harm in actually talking a civilized way to Argentina about this. And I certainly don't think we ought to get involved in a sort of Cold War with Argentina. And I think that, obviously, what everybody wants to prevent is a rerun of 1982. The issues here are complex, but I do think that from the British government's point of view, as I said earlier, I don't think they really mind this coming up again now because it is very handy. It could be the Argentinian government is the same. From a British perspective, I think that Cameron will be keen to have this on the front pages this year so he can sort of wrap himself up in the flag and divert our attention away from the fact the NHS is being dismantled, benefits for the disabled are being cut, the old people's benefits are being cut too. So I think it's quite useful, really, for him.
Neil, good to talk to you on this. Thanks very much for your time. Journalist Neil Cart joining me live there from the UK.